We are all team members of the CIHR Social Research Center in HIV Prevention. As researchers, we want to offer context to our group of colleagues within the SRC and more broadly to other HIV researchers and community advocates with an interest in decolonizing Indigenous and African diaspora research methodologies. We also wanted to learn from each other and collectively advocate for diverse research methodologies in HIV and AIDS research in Canada. Initial scoping of the literature yielded 21,467 references. We chose to restrict literature to 1999 onwards after our search. Our team employed a standardized screening tool to review abstracts for inclusion in our review. This resulted in 3,175 abstracts being included. To review our yield of included literature, we purposely pulled 350 full articles as a sample of the includes. We reviewed these for inclusion, which resulted in 82 relevant articles. A planned meeting to review our progress evolved into a full-day discussion about our review process and our reflections of the literature. What are we doing? Why are we involved in this project? What does this project mean to us as individuals and as researchers? How do we feel about being involved on this project? We felt this was an important discussion to record, capture visually and orally what words may not.
As Indigenous scholars, we need to become comfortable with tension.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. We need to become comfortable with sort of the knotty, thorny, conflict-filled,
yes,
tension-driven kind of ways of being in the world when we're in the context of Indigenous scholarship. And she asked us the question, I think, or maybe I asked the question myself. I can't remember. But anyways. You know, is the resolution of those conflicts always an appropriate goal, right? Or do we need to become, and I think she said this, we need to become comfortable with incommensurable, knotty, thorny conflict, tension in our work. And just, you know, because when you try to resolve them, you do that data reduction thing.
Yes.
And people get moved off the plate.
Yes.
Like we have been moved off the plate by Western research. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It's the ultimate goal, you know, to distinguish yourself. Because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, in many respects, I'm Western. You know what I mean? Like, I can't always clearly make that distinction of us and them. Like, I'm Western in many respects, and for the fact that, you know, just amongst us, many of us are currently doing PhDs in Western institutions, and in many ways, you do have to kind of acknowledge that we have, I don't want to say succumb to the beast, but we're playing that game, right? You know, we're playing by the rules to some extent. We're trying to change them, you know, to work for us in many ways, but yeah, I agree. Is it part of the, you know, maybe just understanding that we do just have to navigate those tensions and understand that tensions are inherent to just doing the type of work that we do and to work through it, because you're never going to conquer those tensions or, you know, have them removed from this type of work. Yeah, so it comes back to identity. Like, our identity isn't as distinct as we'd like it to be oftentimes.
But I think it actually takes me back to what this project has actually done for me. It's to actually start questioning who am I and what have I become and where do I fit in within all this. And I think for ACB populations, it's actually a really important question to actually start thinking about who are we? Because we are not who we were, you know, when we were living wherever we came from. But are we really Western either? So it's almost like we are caught in this between, and nobody seems to understand, even ourselves, who we have actually become. And if you look at what is actually written about ACB populations, I don't think anybody ever captures the way we have actually re-conceptualized our identities and our ways of thinking within a very different context from where we came from. So it's really, it made me think about what have I become, and really looking critically at how does that impact what I tell people, what I say about myself, and when I'm doing research, what comes out and what stays hidden.
Right.
So it's really,
I think that's a really
Yes.
great point. I have to say that, like, I work currently, my dissertation is based in an Indigenous, so it's an Aboriginal research project. And this is a tension that I find myself up against all the time. So while working with Aboriginal communities, there's this, very sort of like the taking up of colonialism in the rhetoric of the young people who are talking about, the susceptibility to HIV and sexual health disparities and all these other things. When I work with ACB communities, and even in my own identity, like even in my own sort of rhetoric, colonialism never gets taken up.
Yes.
It never gets taken up in the same way, to the same degree. And also being someone of Caribbean ancestry, so being a first-generation immigrant from the Caribbean, and then having my own roots coming from all over the place. So we're from Europe to India to Africa, like everywhere. So again, trying to piece together connection to land, colonialism, these processes that affect our history, our roots, what we call, what is Indigenous for us, what is African knowledge, what is Indigenous to us, especially in the Caribbean, where there's a lot of internal racism towards being connected to Africa. So, just trying to piece together what that is, what that looks like, and being a little bit resentful that my history is so fragmented and that I don't know what those pieces are. But I also work with communities that have this, have in a lot of cases this rich connection to that history, to this rhetoric of colonialism, to the knowledge of these connections to health and how health is lived, how we internalize and live these kinds of experiences. But then again, being disconnected from that myself in the communities that I most identify with. And so that tension, again, never being really fully expressed in the literature, not really, the fact that we didn't find many African diasporic, articles in the first place, all of these sorts of things.
Because it's so hard to resolve, or not even to resolve the conflict, but to get to a place sometimes of finding a language that we can share, right? And to kind of to your point, Randy, to talk about being spiritual beings and to shake ourselves out of our heads. And when that's the starting point of even understanding what the conflict is about, it's not resolving it, but just kind of naming or understanding here's the conflict that we're kind of messing around with.
I mean, Marshall,
Who I've seen, Albert Marshall.
Albert Marshall, that's it.
Yes.
And there was another name.
Merdina is his wife.
Merdina Marshall, his wife, developed that idea of two-eyed seeing. I see that really, it's this idea of the strengths of one eye, the strengths of the other eye, and finding ways where the two work together really well. And I think it really comes from that whole notion of double consciousness, right? So you're drawing on strengths of both places and you're coming into a third space that I'm suggesting is about living with the conflict and the tension.
And now I have flashing the Denson and Lincoln, or Lincoln and Gubar, whichever one it is, the table. They keep changing the table, the different columns of what truth value is and what the underlying ontology is, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, what we need from what Randy's saying is we need a new column, actually 2 new columns or 3 new columns in that table that add to the growing perspectives on research about what is truth. How do we assess it? What are the methods that fit with this? And I think what we started doing with this scoping process was we were going to be able to help fill in some of that information. Now, I'm not sure the literature is there yet. I'm not sure we're there yet. But that's possible. And that just helps articulate for everyone what the tensions are and lets them be.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can
exactly.
you can use them and blend them and take them up in whatever way makes sense to you as a researcher, and you can communicate that to other researchers.
Yeah, learn to live with tension does not absolve the social justice focus of the work that we do,
Absolutely.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you already said it.
Well, I think the tension is good though, right? Because it sort of, you know what I mean? But it's good because it keeps everybody fired up, right? Because I think without the tension, then it's flat, right? It becomes really flat after.
And you have to be strategic in your dialogue. I think it's the bringing more people into the circle, and the circle will get bigger, or sometimes we'll condense occasionally, but I think that is where social justice can occur. It's what I worry about is when we change the way we speak in order to be listened to and to resolve conflict. And I think sometimes we do this as ACB and Aboriginal researchers. I only just started researching within my community, whatever that means. You know what I mean? Before, I was like the only non-gay male. You know what I mean? And I was very accepted, and I learned a lot, you know. But I've always danced with those tensions of identity, of community, what that means, of alliances, and what that means. Am I imposing my alliance, or have I been asked to be an ally? You know, there's all those things, but I think I've learned that through my journey as a researcher and also as a woman of color. But I think it's okay to dance with it. It's when you put yourself as, you know, I'm an oppressed, you know, I'm an oppressed black woman, and just think of that and not think about my privilege as being Canadian, or think of sometimes it's not a privilege to be Canadian. If I position myself and don't understand context and understand the multiplicities and the simultaneousities and the ways of being that shift within even a conversation here, it's shifted so many times. So yeah, I'm comfortable with dancing. I do the tango all the time.